I'm going to try to show you how you can monitor your Home Assistant recent stable version with a Zabbix 6.4 in my case, but again, it's going to function with a 7.0 as well when it's going to be out. And straight first, like, I don't use the Home Assistant myself. I don't have any smart home or home automations or other goodies that you can make with it, but for somebody it might be helpful. For the sake of this video, I've installed the Home Assistant and I have it right here. It's absolutely empty without any sensors added, just the default weather forecast that you have right after the installation. And I also have a Zabbix. You can see that I'm already getting the data, and I will show you how you can do that yourself. And the version is 6.4.10. Zabbix itself is installed in the Docker containers, which doesn't make any big difference, and the Home Assistant also is installed from the Docker Compose, which also doesn't make any difference if you have it on Raspberry Pi or Home Assistant OS. All of that will function as well. So first things first, again, I was just Googling how you can install Zabbix and how you can integrate a Home Assistant with a Zabbix, and the only thing that I found is that you need to go to the settings, I think, then devices and services, and here I tried to click add integration and type in Zabbix. Looks easy, but the problem is that whenever you click, you get this message: this device cannot be added from the UI. You can add this device by adding it to your configuration.yaml file. See the documentation for the more information. And we will need this documentation. This is the link, and actually it goes to this one, which is actual Zabbix integration for the Home Assistant. And if you want to see the source, what it is doing, you can go to the GitHub here. And you can just check all the commands, everything that is happening in the background, just to be sure that I know it's safe for you, and you are eager to actually do that. So to set it up, as you can see, you need to add some configuration changes to your Home Assistant. And in Home Assistant, I will clean this up. So I have it started from the Docker Compose. The config file is actually here. So vi configuration.yaml. I've already have it set it up. So initially, before you have a Zabbix, you don't have this part. So this is the stuff that you have to fill in manually. And there are more parameters. All of them are explained here, like the include entity globes, exclude, all of that stuff is, as you can see, optional. The setup as I have it myself is basically to monitor everything that you have in Home Assistant, which is good for the demonstration, but in the production instance, you might want to use these exclude parameters to exclude some metrics. But long story short, like, host is IP address of your Zabbix server. Path, I have just a slash because Zabbix integration will also try to connect over API. And normally, in my case, the API URL looks like this: API_JSON rpc.php. That's the endpoint where the Home Assistant will try to connect. But by default, when you just install Zabbix from the packages, it's gonna look like this. So I believe if you don't have a path specified, as you see, default is /Zabbix, which is, I've actually just noticed it myself. I didn't see it previously. So since my Zabbix installation is just IP address / and that's it, without /Zabbix, I have to add path / that's it. Be careful. However your Zabbix is installed, please check your URL, how it looks like, and make sure that the path and the host actually matches the front end. SSL, if you have HTTPS, you have to specify true. I don't. That's just a demo installation, so SSL is false. Username and password, again, to log into your Zabbix. You can create a users for API usage only and restrict some permissions if you want, but you must provide a valid username and a password for API authentication. And then we need to create a host in a Zabbix itself. and you can call it whatever you want. Like I did it like this, so I have a host, and you can see the host name is Home Assistant. The only thing that you need to make sure that host name here in the Zabbix actually matches the publish states host parameter in the configuration file of the Home Assistant. And that's basically it for the configuration part. So we can close this. So at this point, we could probably have a empty host. I've already configured everything, but if you're following through, then we just created like this Home Assistant host, and at this point it should be empty. So where do we get this template or items or low-level discovery rules that actually gonna do the monitoring for our Home Assistant? And the template file is here. You can find it in Home Assistant. Let me refresh to get the URL Home Assistant IO integration Zabbix. Here's the template, but there's a problem. The template is the version 5.0, so if you will just download it, I'm not really sure if you will be able to import it in a version 6.4, maybe not, but as you can see, it's pretty small. So what I did here myself, I've added, you just need to add one low-level discovery rule, and I did it by hand. So what we can see here is this all basically doesn't matter. We can figure it out ourselves, but we have a discovery rule. Name, not so important. Type, it's a trap, which means that whenever we're creating a new discovery rule, we need to specify the type Zabbix Trapper. That is important, that is mandatory, and that has to match with the template. Then what's the key? Home Assistant floats discovery. And that's exactly the stuff that I've written down in my low-level discovery rule, because this is information that Home Assistant is going to be using to send the data from Home Assistant server to your Zabbix server. Keep lost resources period, you can leave it as default. So we have a low-level discovery rule, and then we need item prototypes. So the prototype that is going to be using the data from low-level discovery rule to actually create an items. And to do that, again, go to the item prototypes, open the link with our template, and here is the configuration of the prototypes. Name is curly brackets hash key, just like I have it myself here. And then we need to check the key, which is home assistant.float, and in the parameters, again, low-level discovery macro key, just like I have it here. And that's about it. Just make sure that the type of information is float, as you can see here. Type of information, numeric float. So these are parameters that you have to. At this point, we have a host, which supposedly will have one discovery rule, and that discovery rule is going to have one item prototype. And at this point, you will have 0 items. In the configuration of your Home Assistant, you will have parameters related to the Zabbix, but still, I faced this issue myself. You restart the Home Assistant server, config is good, Zabbix setup is fine, but you are not receiving any data. And most likely you are also receiving some error messages in the log of the Home Assistant. And the problem is that this integration is not working with the recent version of the Zabbix because of one thing, and I've googled myself, so Zabbix integration don't work. And the problem is that API for authentication has changed a little bit, and the only thing that we need to do is we need to find a PyZabbix API.python and change 2 lines. I will show you here. So it looks as it is on my server and on my console because I have everything installed from the Docker Compose. Depending on your installation, the location and the path of the file that we'll be searching may differ. But so what I would do is just type find all the root directory minus name, and we are looking for PyZabbix. Since again I have everything set it up from the Docker containers and I've did some restarts and stops and so on and so on, we basically have 3 locations, and I am looking for this one. What I will do is vim, then copy, but this is a folder, and we are looking for the file api.python. py, which is Python extension. In this file, we are looking for the line 208 and 210. If you are not able to find like where is the actual line number that you are right now selected, you can just search for self.user and you will find this. So by default, before any modifications, these lines look like this: user equals user and password equals password. But in a Zabbix 6.4, whenever you are doing authentication through the API, it's not user anymore, it's actually user name. So you need to change it here, and you also need to change it here. And these two lines should look just the way as you can see right now on my screen. So whenever that is done, save the file, restart your Home Assistant, and the first thing that you should notice is that you should have some new items on your Home Assistant host. In my case, it's 11, but that's just because I don't have any sensors or anything else configured in my Home Assistant. It's just a clean dashboard, which only has a temperature forecast for the location that I've entered upon installation. So in your case, the amount of the items might be different, and it doesn't really matter because you can go to the monitoring latest data, find your Home Assistant host, and you will see all of the items.